Last weekend, I watched the movie Sound of Freedom. If you haven't had the opportunity to see it, I highly suggest making time. It was an eye-opening and sobering experience. As a side note, there will be spoilers in my commentary today, but I will try to keep them to a minimum. After watching this movie, I began to ask myself some of the same questions that were posed to the protagonist in the movie. And those questions got me thinking. How can human beings be so evil to do this to children, the most innocent and vulnerable among us? In today's episode of Office of the Patriot, I'm going to uncover how some people can commit some of the most heinous crimes against humanity, specifically against children, without any remorse. Hello, and welcome to the Office of the Patriot. In this office, I try to make sense out of the nonsense of the progressive left. If you are a subscriber, thank you for your continued viewership. It is appreciated. If you are a returning viewer, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future presentations. And if you are a first-time visitor to my channel, well, congratulations on finding it. It's usually hidden by the YouTube algorithm. However, I hope you find the content worth coming back for. My name is Myron Ybarra, and I'm your host. The movie Sound of Freedom is the personal story of Special Agent Tim Ballard, played by Jim Caviezel, who is assigned to a child sex trafficking unit within the Department of Homeland Security. During an investigation and arrest of a suspected child sex offender and trafficker, Agent Ballard gets the opportunity to rescue one of the victims, something that doesn't happen often. Agent Ballard and the victim develop a friendship, and as a result of that relationship, Agent Ballard has a crisis of heart. He feels he has to take a more proactive role when it comes to child trafficking and makes a life-changing decision as a result. Agent Ballard immerses himself into the criminal culture of the traffickers and the customers they service, which is put on full display for the audience. I have to warn you, watching this movie gives you a very small glimpse into the physical and emotional toll that this type of work has on the men and women of law enforcement. And if you have any ethical center, The Sound of Freedom is going to well up a whole host of contrary emotions that will leave you questioning, how can people be so evil? Again, please go see this movie, and if you have time, please leave a comment below of your impressions. To figure out why some people commit crimes like the ones depicted in Sound of Freedom, I think we have to look at what makes human beings different from all other forms of life on this planet. The primary difference between human beings and all other life forms on this planet is, according to natural scientists, sapience and sentience. Merriam-Webster defines sapience as possessing or expressing great intelligence, and sentience as being capable of sensing or being aware. But is that all that makes us special in the animal kingdom? I don't think so. I think we have another quality that animals do not have: the ability to act outside our innate biological programming, the power of choice. There are some things that all human beings have that is considered instinctual behavior, things like gathering food, finding, protecting, and providing for a mate, raising children, and promoting a harmonious society with other human beings. We call some of these innate behaviors ethics. The other thing that makes humans different from animals is that we can choose to ignore our ethical drives in exchange of something else. People can choose a path that is outside of their ethical center if they believe the reward is worth the ethical compromise. This line of thinking kind of has a Matrix vibe to it, doesn't it? That's because the components of sapience and sentience that are in humans are also being programmed into AI. Further, both AI and humans have the power to choose to ignore our ethical center, or in the case of AI, root programming. And once you ignore your ethical center, each subsequent act of the same offense becomes easier to accomplish without any internal moral dilemma. I remember as a kid, my brothers and I conspiring to steal my mother's homemade tortillas she would make for dinner. Two of the three of us would cause a distraction in one room, which would pull my mother away from the kitchen, while the third committed the tortilla larceny. The first time we got away with it, I remember my heart pounding out of my chest and some guilt creeping into my soul because I knew my mom would have to spend more time making more tortillas for dinner. However, the reward of warm tortillas was hard to ignore, and soon it outstripped any sense of guilt I felt for the theft. As a result of our first successful heist, subsequent acts became easier and easier to accomplish without any feelings of guilt. We justified the thefts because we were hungry. But we finally got caught because we became complacent and sloppy, like most criminals. And as it turns out, opening the refrigerator and clanging all of the glass inside to get butter and cheese for the warm tortillas probably wasn't the smartest move. So, how did my mom and dad ensure that future tortilla thefts would not be committed in their house? Well, they made sure that the pain of the punishment surpassed the reward of the tortillas, i.e., we had our backsides tanned with a U.S. military-issued web belt courtesy of the United States Air Force general issue. And that is what we need to get back to as a country to stop the inhumane crime of child sex trafficking. Punishment for child sex offenses and child trafficking should be commensurate with the injury the victim suffered while in captivity and continues to suffer even decades later. Now, there may be some of you who believe that all people are redeemable and should be should be forgiven rather, and will call me to account for this position in episode 11, Grace and Forgiveness. To be clear, I still believe in both grace and forgiveness. However, not as a replacement for punishment as a result of wrongdoing. Just because the person is forgiven doesn't mean that they are exempted from their just deserts. Additionally, while rehabilitation and repentance are goals of most corrections departments, they are not and should not be the primary goal. The primary goal is to keep citizens safe, and we do that by ensuring that the people who commit crimes against persons, especially children, the most vulnerable among us, are safely segregated from the rest of society for a very long time. Let me pose this question to you. What do you believe is commensurate punishment for the crime of child sex trafficking, and why? Please take a couple more minutes to comment below. The movie Sound of Freedom has cast a floodlight into a very dark corner of humanity. This topic isn't something that most people talk about in polite conversation, so it's a very difficult pill to swallow. But now that we are all aware, we can take steps to protect our most precious resource, our children, from those who cast off their humanity to become evil in exchange for a few dollars. This concludes today's presentation of Office of the Patriot. If you enjoyed the content, please take the time to like, subscribe, and share my channel on your social media. It is appreciated. And as always, have a blessed day and stay safe out there.